you would like to find today's reference photo, if you look right here at my Discord, go to that. There's also a link to it on my main Twitch page. There should be a link to my Discord down at the bottom. And everyone is welcome to join. But if you are watching this later on YouTube and you don't want to head over to my Twitch page, then you can just type this in your address bar and go there. Join. I encourage you to upload photos if you do them, but I also post the reference photos for every stream that I do. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the supplies. All right. So this is your standard watercolor wells. This is like Crayola, I think is the brand for this one. I don't use these. I actually use tubes. So these are the more professional watercolors. These are the more professional watercolors. So these are the ones that I use. I use Grumbacher Academy, and you'll see that A, the Academy. But you can use this if you you know, if this is what you have at your craft store or local Walmart or something like that, and this is what you have, then please use it. I want this to be accessible to everyone. If you have access to the fine art watercolors, the colors I'm using are Phthalo Crimson, Burnt Umber, Phthalo Blue, Cadmium Yellow Light, and or Pale, excuse me, Cadmium Yellow Pale, same thing, and Ultramarine Blue. And the reason I have two blues is because one is a warm and one is a cool, and that will be important. Now, if you have like this Crayola set, you only have one blue. This is a warmer blue, and the way to cool that down is to add a little bit of purple to it. So, and I'll talk about that if that comes into play today. You do need pencils. This is a number 2 pencil, which is fine. I have the art version of that, which is called an HB. But the number 2 pencil is actually the same thing. These are the same. This one's just a little bit higher quality, but they're both number 2 pencils. An eraser. A couple brushes. I've got a large flat brush. It's called a filbert because it's rounded at the top. This is a wash brush. So you can either get a size 10 or 12 filbert, or this is a 3/4 wash. This is a size 6 round brush. You can also use a 4 or an 8. So it's round because it's got that point at the top. I have a little palette knife. You can also use a plastic knife out of, you know, whatever, fast food or something. To go, I guess. I rarely use this. I end up mixing with my brush a lot. So, but it's good to have on hand just in case. This is a palette. Now, I already have some colors here because watercolor can be reconstituted. So that means that if you add a little bit of water, then it will get your color back. So I went ahead, and these are from last week, from my watercolor class last week. So I just let these dry, and we'll reuse them. There's no sense in wasting. Okay, so I'm going to set these to the side. You will need watercolor paper. I use 9x12 size. It's just a good standard size. It's small enough to fit into like an 11x14 frame if you want. But you can use a smaller size if you want. Oh, just in case you need to know, weight is not as important, but this is 140 pounds, which is on the lower end of watercolor paper. You can get heavier weight than that, but 140 is pretty good for what we're doing. Then last but not least, you need some water because, of course, it is watercolor. So I'm going to go ahead and, set this knife to the side. Now, I mentioned, you'll also want some paper towels or a towel or something. So I mentioned that you need a pencil. Okay, well, the reason you need a pencil is because in watercolor, we have to plan a little bit. Watercolor is additive, but it's translucent. That means that the paint will mix with the paint below it and create a new color. So if you have blue and you paint and you let it dry and you paint more blue on it, it's going to actually become a darker blue. Or if you have yellow, you let that dry and you paint blue on top of it, it's going to become green. So it's additive because it's so transparent and you can see through it. Then it's really important that we plan everything out, because with acrylic you can just paint over something if you know your line got off or something like that. With a watercolor you cannot do that because it will just add to the color below it. So we plan. So first we're going to go ahead and draw a little hill. If you have the image, again, remember that if you go to my Discord channel, you can see today's image. And if you have that, then you'll see that there's a little hill. So we're just going to very lightly sketch our hill. I'm going to start probably just a little to the left of the midpoint. So this is the middle, and I'm going to go about 1 inch to the left. Okay, now, normally when we do a landscape, it would be oriented this way. But because we have so much interest that we're generating with our mailbox and balloon, then we need it to be vertical. So that's why we're using a portrait orientation today rather than our normal landscape. And in fact, because today doesn't really show very much of the landscape, I would probably consider this to be like a still life more than anything else. It's just a subject representation. Okay, so we've got our hill. Now we're going to draw our mailbox. We're going to start with 2 lines that go up. I'm starting right about here on the hill. 2 lines that are going to represent the post of our mailbox. And now we're going to draw the actual mailbox. So starting right on the left of the 2 lines, we're going to draw a line going straight back. And then we're going to take our line in the front and angle it up just slightly. So it's going up this way a little bit rather than straight. Okay. Now, I'm going to draw, like very lightly, sketch a line in the middle. I'm going to hold that up so you guys can see that. Very lightly. And then our mailbox is going to curve to meet the top of that line. Like that. Okay, I can erase out that middle line. You do not have to. Remember, blow, don't wipe. It's not as important in this because we're using our number 2 pencil and we're going to be painting over it, but it's a good habit to be in. Okay, when you erase, don't wipe it off, blow it off. Okay, so we've got another line starting at the very top of our the mailbox opening that we have here. We're going to have another line going straight back. It's going to stop. I actually went a little bit too far. Okay, it's going to stop a little bit before the end of this because it's going to curve down like that. There you go. All right, so we've got our mailbox now. We need to put our opening for our mailbox. So I'm just going to do kind of a looped, like a curve there. And that shows the mailbox opening. So I'm giving you guys just a second to catch up. Hopefully you notice the music I'm playing in the background. I want to say thank you to the Chilled Cow playlist for this very, very mellow music. I pretty much listen to this all the time now, just in the background when I'm doing stuff. It's really great. Chilled Cow. Check it out. I believe he or she, whoever runs it, also streams this music on Twitch as well. So I may host that at some point. Okay, so now we're going to do a little envelope coming out of our mailbox. So this doesn't have to be perfect, and in fact, it almost will look nice if we do it in a whimsical way. So maybe our line kind of curves up and comes down. Let's see. So I'm going to erase out. But basically the idea is that it doesn't have to be a perfect envelope shape. It can be kind of bent a little, like it's, I don't know, magically coming out, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to put a little heart right in the middle. And from that heart, we'll have a line going to each corner. One of the corners you can't really see. Well, two of the corners, I guess. Okay. Now we need to draw our flag. So, first we're going to start right above the post here, towards the top of the mailbox, but it'll be centered over the post. We're going to do just a little circle. Okay. Then from the left side of the circle, you'll have a straight line that comes up. And then from the middle of that circle, you'll have the other line come up. All right, now we're going to make a little flag. So you just like a regular flag, you just come out like that. So there you go. Now if you want to erase out the line in the middle, you can, although this is going to be red, so it will cover that a little. You can also erase out the mailbox line if you want. Like so. Okay, now coming pretty much centered over everything that we've just done, like so right over that mailbox post again. You're going to have a straight line come up, and then we're going to have a heart-shaped balloon. So we're just going to do heart shape. All right, and feel free to ask any questions in chat. I do periodically check back with chat to make sure that there aren't any questions being asked of me, so please feel free to ask any questions. If you're not sure, you need me to go back or something like that, please let me know. All right, so at the bottom of we're going to basically do kind of an upside down crown with 3 points. So like that. It's almost like, I don't actually know, maybe like a funky W. All right, so we've got that. Then down here on the actual flag, we're just going to very lightly draw like a bow. That's more for later reference. All right. So we could stop here. There's a couple options. We could go ahead and draw in our clouds if we want. Maybe we'll go ahead and do that today. Normally I don't. Normally I just let kind of serendipity take over where my clouds go. But today we'll go ahead and draw them in. So starting about 2 inches, maybe 1.5 inches from the top of the page, kind of come down and just do like a really, you know, haphazard line that's going to represent approximately where our cloud's going to be. I'm not being exact about this. I'm looking at the reference photo. The main thing is that we get some white. You can't see the line. Let me hold that up. Is that better? So remember to pull up the reference photo if you can from the Discord channel, and that will help too, because that's all I'm looking at is I'm just looking at the reference photo and generally drawing the line that I see. The most important part is that the line come to the left of the heart so that this will end up being white space around the heart, so the heart really stands out. So I'll let you guys get that. All right. So on the other side, I'm going to draw the line and then I'll hold it up for you guys. Let's see. Come down and just scoop around. Okay, and then the last line I'm going to do is going to come out of the side of the hill. And welcome back, Teacher Margot. She helped me do a test stream earlier. I have new equipment and new internet, really. So my internet's much faster, and so I wanted to test everything. I'm now on my PC, on my desktop, rather, instead of my laptop, so I can stream a little bit higher. Okay. So I'll just hold the whole thing up. Let's see. I don't know. That's hard to see. Okay. We are done drawing, so we can go ahead and put our pencils away for now. Let's go ahead and start with some watercolor. So the first thing is that you need to get your brush wet. I'm going to put the bigger brush to the side. We're going to use a smaller brush. Well, let's do this. Okay. Yeah, let's use our smaller brush. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is our sky. When you wet your brush, what you do is you take your brush and you push it down on the bottom of the cup, your cup of water, and that gets it opens your brush up. And I just pretend like I'm painting the bottom, and I just go back and forth. Okay, get some water on your brush, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually paint the area of the sky where it's going to be blue. So like up here, paint all the way up to that line, and you can go over the line, it's okay if you do, with water. Okay, so we're just going to paint that whole area up at the top with water. Now this is the really interesting thing about watercolor, is that it's very serendipitous, meaning that things just kind of happen, and they happen in such a beautiful, amazing, perfect way, because in a sense you're collaborating with the universe. That's what I call watercolor. It's my collaboration with the universe. I let the universe do its thing, and I kind of just guide where I want it to go, and then it takes over. So we paint with water, and then we're going to touch the color to it, and when we do that, the color is going to go where it wants to go. That's the universe part. So if you're not sure if you've already painted an area with color, if you just hold it under some light or tilt your head, you can see where it's shiny. Like I can see a place that I missed. You want it to be shiny all over. So we're just going to do this first section of the sky. Now we're going to be using our phthalo blue. Just so happens phthalo is the same color as what's in the blue that's in your watercolor. So you can just use the straight blue from your watercolor palette if that's what you're using. But just get it really good and wet all the way up to the line. Okay, it looks shiny. Okay, so I had some blue left over, but that's really not a lot. So I'm going to, oh wait, this is my phthalo. And there is a pretty decent amount. So to reconstitute or re-wet your paint, you just get some water in there. I'm just dipping my brush in water and then just like allowing the water to drip down into the well. And then I'm just not touching the paint directly, but I'm just swishing my brush around, swizzling it around. And then when you touch the paint to the water area, see how it starts to fracture like that? It starts to splinter out. That is the interesting part. And you can't duplicate that. Like that just happens on its own. And if you got your whole area wet, this should start, you don't have to paint all the way to the lines. It should take over and do it for you. You might have to get a little bit more water, especially if you're using the pre-made wells like the Crayola over here. So as I mentioned earlier, happy Valentine's Day to everyone. I'm not traditionally a celebrator of Valentine's Day. I think it's overly commercial. And I think that there has become like an expectation, at least in the United States, there's been become an expectation where your significant other is supposed to do something for you, or it's supposed to be a date night or things like that. And I think that that's what I try to get away from. Because I feel like there's not really any supposed to in a relationship, really. I mean, every relationship is different, and, you know, no major holiday dictates how your relationship's supposed to go. So I've kind of steered away from celebrating, but lately I've been thinking of it more like, maybe it's not the celebration of the day or of the relationship, but just of love in general. You know, I mean, and we love our friends and our family too. So why not celebrate Valentine's Day with them? So tonight I'm actually going to be going over to my friend's house. It happens to be Teacher Margot, who's on here. And I'm going to cook dinner tonight for her and her awesome kids. And celebrate loving my friends. Because that's what my Valentine's Day is going to be about. So, you know, you celebrate Valentine's Day, like, you know, just because you don't have a significant other, doesn't mean that you can't celebrate love, you know. Now, you notice, it's pooling, for me, it's pooling a little bit. My paper is starting to tilt, and look what's interesting. When you tilt the paper down, like all I'm doing is just pulling it up, and you can see how the color starts moving around. So you can do that. And just tilt the paper. It depends on what kind of paper you're using. If you are using like a cardstock or something like that, you definitely want to, your paper is going to start to curl. So you want to take care of that. Okay. So you can continue to add more color. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. And you can actually tilt it around if you want. Tilt your paper and see how it, like the water moves around. You can do really interesting stuff with it. We're not getting too creative with our sky today. Just be careful when you're doing this that it doesn't leak into parts that you don't want it to go, especially if you have a little bit too much water. So I'm going to wet my brush again and get most of the color off and come over and do this other section over here. Again, I'm not being too particular that I'm staying right in the line. The line is more like a guideline, you know, to generally tell us where we want our sky to be. Now, I just made a little accident and I got some water on my paper here. I accidentally dropped water, and especially if it's already dry, you'll see that drop. So what I'm going to do is just pick up a little color and just kind of move it around, and that will take care of that. Okay, I think I'm almost completely covered. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so you do need to be careful. In fact, I'm going to wipe this up where these couple of drips here. You do need to be careful with your brush. I unfortunately have a very bad habit of getting stuff everywhere, but all right, so I'm picking up some more of that blue and coming in. And bringing this around the edges. Again, you don't have to go right to the edge. It'll kind of go over it itself. Yeah, I think with Valentine's Day, there's just like this sentiment that you have to do something, and I just don't like that about our culture, you know, where we pressure people into doing things like, you know, because it's the right thing to do or the cool thing to do or whatever, you know. Kind of like the idea of getting engaged and using a diamond for your engagement ring. Like, that's totally fabricated. It's tradition. You don't have to do that. If you and your significant other don't agree with that, then don't do it. Just because society says you have to. That's dumb. Okay, so I'm tilting this up again because I want this to kind of go all the way over. Now, I can still see my line a little bit, so I'm just going to bring some of that over so that it'll dry on the edge there. Okay. One more section of blue, this little blue down at the bottom here. Oop, there. So, let's go ahead and get color on there. Or water, rather. Sorry, I said color. We're getting water on there. Now, I noticed that my water is getting a little bluer. Because I'm starting to add blue to the clear. Now these lines I did a little bit darker, so I am going to actually go over the lines a little bit because I want it to be, I don't want to see my pencil lines. You can always go over with darker color later. Remember how I said at the beginning that it's additive, so if you have more than one color, if you let it dry, it will go over. Okay, so mine's finished. It will create a darker. That's what I meant to say. And it's hard for me to paint and talk at the same time, guys. Or maybe it's just today. I actually have with me my special Valentine's Day chocolates. They're not really. They're just my favorite. They're like little mini Reese's cups almost. But I got them at the health food store. So I can feel better about my choices. Actually, I got them at the health food store that's closing. I don't know why, but a bunch of health food stores are closing in my area. Not happy about that because I like shopping at those places. Giving them my business, so I'm sad they're leaving. Alright, so I've got all the color on there. I'm going to just tilt it a little. I'm going to maybe get a little more color. Now I put a little bit too much color, so I'm going to get a little water. Just kind of move that around. Okay. So I'm going to rinse my brush off and dry it off, and we're done with this section. So we're not going to be doing anything that touches the blue right now. So we can just let it dry and we don't have to worry. Sometimes when we're doing watercolor, you have to skip. Like say we wanted our clouds were going to be gray or pink or something like that. We wouldn't work on the clouds next until the blue area had dried. But since we're leaving our clouds white, then it's okay for us to just continue working. Now, I'm going to show you a little technique later. Once everything dries, we're going to come in and do some fun things with the edges of our clouds. But for right now, we're just going to let that dry. Okay. So now we're going to do our hill. And let's mix. We're going to mix our phthalo blue and our cadmium yellow. So if you are using this type of tray, you'll get some yellow. When you open the tray up, well, if you can open the tray up, there we go. There's on this side, there's actually little mixing places. It's a palette. So you can pick up just, you get a lot of your yellow and a lot of your blue, and you mix it together. Now, they happen to already have a green there. This green is an even combination of this blue and this yellow. So to get the green that we're going for, if you wanted to just use this green here and add a little yellow to it, that would work. For the rest of you who are using these type of colors, I already had some yellow, so I'm going to go ahead and there wasn't really a whole lot there. So I need to get more. My yellow likes to get stuck. For future reference, if you ever have your top, if you're on watercolors, if it gets stuck and it won't open, run it under a little bit of warm water or hold it in some warm water, and that will loosen it. The watercolor has just dried inside of it, but because it can be reconstituted, then you can easily just warm that right up. Okay, so I'm adding a little bit of water. I'm just going to go ahead and mix my color here. I normally don't put the brush directly in the into the paint, but that's what's happening today. So I'm getting some of this yellow and bringing it to the middle. See that? And then I'm going to get some of I'm washing my brush completely, and I'm going to pick up some of my phthalo blue. And I'm just going to do it once. I'm not going to bring too much of it. And let's see. All right. Maybe a little bit more yellow to that. I want it to be very springy. There we go. That's nice. Okay. So very spring green. Okay. Now first, we're going to go ahead and wet our area, just like we did with the clouds. So let's wet the area. set that down. So I'm kind of tilting to the side to see if it's shiny everywhere. I want it to be shiny everywhere. And sometimes if you use like pre-pressed paper, like that comes in those pads, like I showed you before, they have like a little bit of sizing or something on them that makes it where the water won't stick to it. So you just have to keep working at it. You just have to keep adding water until it breaks down whatever that is that they put on the paper. Sizing like protects the paper, which is great so that it lasts longer, but it's not great when you want to paint on it and it won't accept your water. It's like, well, the whole point of it is watercolor. So okay, so now I'm going to pick up some of that color that we got and just paint all over. You don't have to worry about the grasses coming up yet. Not just yet. Hopefully I made enough of this color. So I'm just letting this go all over. And apparently there was a lot of sizing down in this corner for some reason, so I just got some water, some more water, and put it on there. Once everything dries on it, then you'll be going on top of watercolor, so it doesn't matter, but sizing is a bear. Okay, so we've got our color down. You can put a little yellow in the middle if you want. Like just straight yellow. I'm just doing straight yellow in the middle. This just gives it some texture. Some layering. Okay. I'm washing my brush off. Now, I think we're going to leave this area for now and let it dry. And then I'm going to show you a technique later where we can get kind of the grassy look to it. All right. So next, we're going to actually paint our mailbox. And I'm going to have some chocolate. Okay. Maybe a little water. Appa. Currently learning Romanian. Kind of just for fun, really. I mean, why not? But anyway, apa is water. So, let's see. We need to make a mailbox color. How we're going to do this, we're going to use some of our ultramarine blue, which if you're using this kind of palette, you know what? I don't actually think we're going to use this brush, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it away because I think we're just going to use the smaller brush today. You mix some blue, a tiny bit of purple, and then you want to mix your burnt umber, so you're going to mix your brown. Just a little bit of that. Okay, so I've already got like a brownish blue that I made from the week before. But all you're doing is mixing, oh, and that's too warm, so I'm going to have to make a new color anyway. All right, so I'm going to come over to another part of my center, pick up some of my ultramarine blue. This color here would have been okay, except for it has the phthalo blue is what's mixed in it. And I need the ultramarine. So again, if you're using this, you mix blue with a little bit of purple and then your brown. I don't have any brown in here, so I'm going to add some. Now, this is how you get a color started. So you get some water on your brush. Make sure it's completely clean from any other color. So here's my brown. Go ahead and get water on your brush. You can tap it to get it extra off. And then you come to the side of the well and just let the water, you can wipe it on the side of the well, just letting the water drip down into your well. So I'll hold that up so you guys can see. See, the water's just dripping down into it. Oh, I accidentally touched it. I'm trying not to touch the paint. The key is not to touch the paint. So you get water going. Then you start agitating the water, but on the side, you're not actually touching the paint. And you do this until it's not clear anymore, until it's completely opaque with the brown. It'll become very soupy. But this is how you can preserve your color. So there we go. So I'm going to add a little bit of this. That was too much. So I got to get more blue. I added way too much brown to that. But see how that made kind of a gray? I'm going to add a little bit more blue to that. I want it to be a little bit more of a bluish gray. Okay. Now, we don't have white. We can't add white to this. What we can add is water. So I'm going to really water this down. All I'm doing is just dripping water into it. And that will make it lighter. So in watercolor, if you want a color to be lighter in value, just add water. All right, so this is pretty light. Doesn't necessarily look light, but it is. Just in case, though, I'm going to rinse off my brush really well. All right, so pick up some of that color, and we're just going to come in here and paint our mailbox. I almost did it, so just be careful not to set your hand down on your areas that are previously wet. All right, so I'm painting all of the areas that are going to be gray on the mailbox. Some of these areas are going to end up being darker. We'll be doing a second coat and doing our additive color thing. The other part is the post. Now the post is brown, but what we're going to do is lay down a little gray first so that the colors blend well together. The reason we want that, and I just got a little bit of color on my envelope, so I'm just going to take my paper towel, it's not dry yet, and just dab right at that, and that pulled that right off. So the reason we want these to blend together, this happens a lot in painting. I believe Bob Ross talks about this when he paints, but to make it look more natural, where you don't have blue, green, yellow, pink, red, unless that's what you're going for, which is color blocking, that's what that's called. You want your colors to generally go together. So for example, my green grass used the phthalo blue that I used in my sky. This used ultramarine blue, but we want this to stand out a little bit because this is like the focal point of our picture. So it's okay that it's not using similar colors. But the post, we're going to be doing like a little bit darker brownish color. If we use the base of this gray first, it'll just blend everything. It'll blend with the eye and it'll make it seem more natural looking. So that's why we're doing that. All right, we need this to dry a little bit. So while we're doing that, we're going to go ahead and mix our red. Let's do some phthalo crimson. So I already had some here. You can use the red that comes in the box. This is the red here. If you want to, my color, it has a little bit more, just a tiny bit more blue in it. Not a lot, but just a little bit. Oh, wait. Am I even using the right color? I think, okay, we used a couple different colors. This might not be correct. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to wet this color here. Because I remember us adding yellow. So I wet it, and I'm going to actually soak it up so that I have my well there. And we're going to put down straight red and see what happens. Straight phthalo crimson. Let's see. Ah, it is a slightly different color. Okay, so this must have had a little bit of blue mixed in it, which is fine, but that gives it like a purplish color. So what we're going to do, I'm glad that I caught that. So we're going to put some water in the well, just like we did with the brown. And then we'll start agitating it until it's solid color. Yeah, now you can see that these are different colors. I'm not touching the paint, I'm just touching around it. I'm gonna go ahead and mix that up. Oh yeah, look at that. That's way darker. I definitely added some blue to that. I was probably making like a purplish color. Okay, so let's get my brush good and clean. And let's pick up some of this red color. And we're just going to paint our balloon. And I'm painting the color straight on there. I'm not doing the water first. Oops, I didn't mean to pick up. I just accidentally picked up some paint. I meant to just pick up the water, but that's why mine is so much darker. So I'm going to get just pure water and kind of move that around a little bit because I didn't mean for it to be that dark. You know what I realized I forgot to do? Our balloon is supposed to be kind of shiny, which means that it will have a shine mark in it. So here's what I'm going to do. If you've already painted, get your brush really good and clean. Actually, you know what? Let's just wait. We're going to wait now. Too late. We already did it. So we're going to wait until the color has dried. So let's just keep going. My bad, guys. Sorry about that. But this is good because then I can show you like how to catch something later. You can't exactly erase, but you can you can make highlights and things. All right. So I'm going to paint my heart in my envelope. You want to make sure you're not using very much pressure. That way you can get a really fine point with your brush. This takes practice. This is something I've noticed that my kids particularly aren't always very good at because they want to push the brush down. Okay, then I'm going to paint my flag. So these are the parts that are red. Our flag and our two hearts. And I accidentally painted inside my gray area. I was trying really hard not to, to be careful. I think my gray wasn't completely dry yet, so I'm just gonna soak that up. I'm gonna leave it. I'm not gonna try to fix the gray right now. I'm just gonna leave it. We're gonna be doing highlight on that part anyway. There we go. Okay. We're going to let that dry. Now, the grass. We're going to come back to the grass. So, I want to do a little bit darker green. I'm going to do something fun with my brush. And I'm going to spread it like this. Then I'm going to pick up some, well, okay, first, before I do that, I need to mix more green because apparently I didn't mix enough. So I get some water down here. Maybe I'll even make my green a little bit darker. So get some yellow. All right, now we're gonna get some of our blue. We're using the phthalo. Okay, that's pretty good. Maybe a tiny bit more blue. All right. Now what you're gonna do is you're going to spread your brush like that. And you're gonna dip it in the green. And then you're gonna come, oh, and that is not doing what I want it to do. Hold on. You're going to basically just very lightly come in and do little brush strokes. This is not doing what I want to do. I'm going to try the bigger brush. So maybe we will use the bigger brush after all. I've got to wet it first. I don't know if this is working for you guys. It's not working for me the way I want it to, and it should. So I'm going to dry it a little. I just needed to wet it to get things to move around. I'm going to try to make, what we're doing is making a fan. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of color at the ends. And that's a little better. This is not at all, though, what I was wanting. So, experiment failed. This has worked for me before. So, what I think I'm going to do to try to salvage this, I will use my smaller brush. I just pick up some of that green, and I'm just going to do very light strokes. Crisscross. You can cross hatch, which is like where you make little X's. Well, and I'm liking the look of this better anyway. So make sure you do that all the way down inside your hill. So, well, I tried something new. I mean, it wasn't really new. I've gotten it to work before, but for some reason, it's not working for me today. Don't forget to go over your mailbox. And we're going to use a little bit darker green here, too, in a little bit. In fact, I might even use the green straight from that palette. And where you go over the yellow is going to be really interesting, because that's going to pick up where we put that yellow down earlier. So I'm hardly using my brush. I mean, it's like barely touching the surface of the painting. All right, I need to mix some more green because I ran out. I'm just coming right off the page. Again, just doing crisscross. How's everybody doing out there? Hopefully my failed experiment didn't throw too many people off. I've done that technique before, but I've never taught this class before, so for whatever reason, it's not wanting to work the way I intended it to. That happens. You know, you experiment in art. And it's important that you do experiment in art. You know, you you want to try new things and see what will work for your technique and what you like. Like in my fiber arts, like when I'm doing weaving and stuff like that, I'm very experimental. I always try to push the envelope and see what this will do. What will this technique, what can I get it to do for me? And I think that's really important that artists do that. Because that's how we learn new things. That's how we come up with new techniques, you know? You think that there's nothing new under the sun, but sometimes there is. Sometimes somebody comes up with a new way to do something, and that could be you. Maybe you can find a way to do cross-hatching in watercolor without having to do it manually like this. Maybe there's like a faster way. All right, we're gonna let this dry and we'll come back in again because I want there to be more texture in here. Now let's go back to our mailbox. So we've got our gray color. I'm going to put a little bit more gray color in the inside of the mailbox. Then I'm going to put a little bit around the rim of the mailbox. And now I'm going to pick up just a little bit of my brown, not a lot, just a little bit. And I'm going to paint over the post there. I think I made my lines too dark, my pencil lines, and you can try to erase them after you put watercolor on there. It's not always successful. I'll try today and see. I mean, hey, today is apparently a day of experiments, so we'll just see. Oh, now I didn't realize this, but apparently, all right, so now I'm going to teach you guys how to erase in watercolor. So apparently I got some red came down here. I did not even notice that. It kind of looks like a cool reflection, but I don't want it there. So I wet that area and then you just dab. It's not going to be perfect. Like you can never really get a perfect erase in watercolor, but you can get pretty close. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm actually going to put some more gray in here. I didn't want to, but it looks like I'm going to. We might as well do our highlights here. So to highlight, what I was going to do is kind of brush some water in like a stripe and then take my paper towel and wipe it up. And that creates your highlight. So I'm going to do a little bit more at the top here. There we go. This mailbox is not cooperating. Okay. Well, so now I've got a little bit of pink on my mailbox, but that's okay. It's not as noticeable. While we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to mix a little bit of yellow. I'm just going to do it over here because we don't need much of it. A little bit of yellow and a little bit of brown. Tiny, tiny bit of brown. Oops, that was too tiny of an amount. Didn't even get it. Okay. And then we're going to add a lot of water to it. This is going to be our envelope color. I'm going to put a little more yellow in there to make it kind of a creamier color. All right, so I'm just coming in here and painting yellow. Man, what is up with this red today? I'm pulling red in from everywhere. All right, note to self, please try not to touch the red. I just did it again. Every time I touch the red, I wipe my brush, I wet it and wipe it so that I don't get red anywhere else. Because apparently the red wants to be everywhere, everywhere. All right. So all I did was slightly tint my envelope a little bit, like kind of that yellowish brown. I think we're going to fully need things to dry. And maybe I'm going to mix a little bit more blue in here. Let's see. Let's take up some of that water. I'm mixing some blue. So we're making this basically darker. And I'm coming in and doing the inside. Okay. My envelope wasn't totally dry yet, but I'm not touching it. It didn't go in very far, so. I'm not being patient enough. This is a good lesson. Watercolor can be a lesson in patience. I don't typically I do have a hair dryer and I could dry things quicker. I don't typically like to do that because with watercolor, remember I mentioned that you've got serendipity. Well, you lose some of that when you dry it with hair dryer because it dries too fast. So I don't like to dry with a hair dryer if at all possible. Okay. I will sometimes blow a little bit. And that might have to be what happens today. I really want to fix that flag, but I can't do anything until everything's dry. We can work down here a little bit more. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and mix some of our blue, a little bit of yellow. I'm getting like a relatively dark green. And I'm going to come in and just do right at the edge here. Trying to get my edge covered. There we go. The edge of the page. Remember, crisscross, you're going all different ways. Doesn't have to be a perfect X either. Like, you want it to just kind of be crossing in different ways. Now, I can come up and add in some crisscross higher up in the painting. Oh, that was a little bit more blue than I wanted. So I'm just painting right over it with some green, new green that I mixed. Just kind of working around, trying to work my edges wherever the paint ends, because I don't want it to look like there's just like this row of crisscrosses, you know. I want it to look like it kind of blends down into the drawing a little bit. I mean the painting rather. I might pick up a little bit of yellow and just come in and do my crisscrosses that way. And that will add even more texture. Hope this is going okay for you guys at home. Nobody's asking any questions. Which is fine. I'm hoping that means that everything is going spectacular and not the alternative, which is that everybody's lost. I'm going to mix a little bit more dark color, dark green, just by adding a little bit of yellow to my, that was too little of yellow. There we go. We'll have to let this dry again because everything's kind of blending now. Excuse me. I have to put some more yellow down. Like almost completely out of yellow. I'm just gonna, there's a little green in here, so I'm just gonna clean this up before I put new yellow down. If your colors ever get mixed and you don't mean for them to, you can always just put water in there, wipe it out, and put the new color down. Or just start a new well. So same as I did with my red and my brown, I'm going to get water on the side here. And then agitate it rather than touching the paint directly. This yellow is taking a long time. All right, it's not cooperating, so I'm going to take my palette knife and just stir it. There we go. I don't know why. Okay. I'm just coming in here and doing some extra line work, especially down at the bottom, because I don't know. Oh, thank you for the bless you. Okay, let's do our heart. So I told you I was going to show you guys how to do this. All right, so I forgot to have us save out some white in here for like our shiny bits. So what we're going to do is wet your brush and get it really good, like most of the color off of it. And then you're going to check and make sure it's dry, which it should be by now. Just do a curved line of water. and I paint over that curved line multiple times. And as you paint over it, you'll start to see where it's the paint is coming away. Okay, so then you just dip your paper towel right on it. Now I'm going to do a little bit on this side. Just a little line. Like that. See? Ta-da! I'm going to work on this one a little bit more. Okay. Awesome. I love it. All right, now pick up a little bit of my red. This should be dry now, so I'm fixing my red. Now, I don't know if this happened to anybody else, so if it didn't, then you're just watching me while you let things dry. All right. So the other thing I told you guys we were going to do, it's going to be very similar to what we just did with the red. We're going to come in and we're going to create some more interesting cloud effects. So we're just going to come in and just lightly paint over the edge line. You do not have to do this if you want to watch me do it first. So I paint over my edge line and I come in and I dab at it. And this will give you a more interesting edge to your clouds. I'm dripping water. All right. I'm going to definitely do it on this one. This one I feel like just... You can also, when you paint the edge, just leave it. Just let it dry like that if you want. I don't like doing that. I'd rather control it a little bit. You can even like pick up a little bit of color if you want. And I just add a little water to that. Okay. I'll do it down here. It kind of blends your edge too with the paper, so it's not so harsh. Now I'm just kind of playing while I'm waiting for things to dry. If you're wondering what I was doing. We're almost done here. Just dabbing at my edges. I'm not really happy with this section up here. I don't know what's going on. I think I know because when this came down here I kind of like the way that looks, so maybe I'll just leave this a little darker and not worry so much about my edges on this side. Okay, I'm going to stop messing with the sky. I'm going to put a little bit more of our dark gray in the inside of the mailbox just to darken that up just a little bit more. Around the edge. So see, we're layering that color. Then we're going to make ourselves a black because we want to do our string and our bow tie. So what we're going to do is take that dark gray color. And we're already most of the way there. We're going to add a little bit more of our brown. And then we're going to add a tiny bit of red. That was not a tiny bit. So we'll add more blue. And that's still too purple, so I'm adding a little bit more brown. There we go. Woo, nice. Okay, I saved it with a little bit more blue. So we're making it black, basically. Okay, I'm going to wipe my brush off completely so it's dry. It's pretty dry. We're going to start with the top of the balloon. So just dip it into that dark color that you mixed. And we're just going to put a little line right across the balloon. This color is just not thick enough. So I'm adding some pure brown and pure blue. Like I'm actually taking the paint itself and adding a little bit to that. We don't want as much water with this. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing. I'm drying it completely off. Picking up a little bit of color. And I'm going to very lightly touch the string with my brush. Now, if you have black, you can use the black from this. That's not going to hurt anything. If you want to do that, just go very, very lightly. All right. And we're going to do our bow tie. And our strings that come down from the tie. And of course, in true today fashion, my red got caught in my string, and so now I have red string. Guys, this red just wants to be everywhere. All right. Okay, now the last part we're going to do is our envelope. We're just going to very lightly touch around the edges of the envelope, including the little lines that went down towards the heart. I'm going to actually touch the pole up a little bit to the stem of the all right. The last part that I am not like a huge fan of is this grass. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to see, remember we were going to experiment with the eraser. Let me get my eraser back. I'm going to just experiment and see what happens if I try to erase out. Well, it's working. However, it's also bringing some of my paint up. So let's do this. Maybe I should erase in like lines of the way I want my paint to look, rather than all right, well, so now I got to go over it with the green because I can't leave this looking like that. So I'm going to pick up a little green. I'm going to mix a little bit of the yellow with it. Oh, all the eraser marks are not gone. You know why? Because this was not dry yet. The mailbox thing wasn't dry. So we got to let that dry a little bit. Mini lessons today, mini lessons, guys. And then we're done after this. There's not, I've got some eraser marks. There's not anything else we're going to be doing to our painting. Just looking at it, making sure that I got all of the areas I'm meant to get. Yeah. Okay, I'm picking up some of my green, and I'm going to come in here and do our little crosshatch thing. All right. Good. Yay. I'll just use the rest of my green because I'm going to have to clean it out anyway. Just come in and do some like kind of crazy lines. All right. So I'm calling it. I think it's done. We need to sign. So you always sign watercolor and pencil. If it's still wet, which I didn't put enough down here for it to not be wet, but you need to let it dry first before you sign it. All right, so now for critique time, and I'm gonna just bend this just a little bit. What you can do is you can take a couple of heavy books, and once everything is completely dry, place your books on top of it and it will flatten it out and it'll stay flat. All right, critique. So here's the thing about this. I did my pencil lines too dark, and I think what happened is one of you guys mentioned not being able to see my lines, and so I think I just kind of normally I would just keep holding it up for you guys, but something in my head like triggered me starting to draw them darker. So if you continue drawing your lines light, you probably didn't have as many problems as I did today. So my lines were very dark. It's a good lesson though to remind you guys that when you are painting watercolor, to keep your lines super light when your pencil lines, because they don't get covered up very easily like they would be with acrylic paint. So there's that lesson. Lesson number 1, keep your lines light. Lesson number 2 for today, I think that I actually really like, so I accidentally forgot to put our little, to draw in our shine marks, whatever those are called, like where the reflective marks. I like it like this better. I think I like this. It looks softer and makes it look more round. So I'm actually glad that happened. That was serendipity. A lot of the red mixing, meaning it was because I was not letting things dry completely. So that's another lesson. Let things dry completely before you start on the next section. I even mentioned it at the beginning and then forgot. I was just hurrying. I think the grass is pretty effective. I like the grass a lot. I'd probably next time maybe play around with the sky. Maybe I would not draw in the sky next time. Maybe I just kind of let my paintbrush figure out where to go, as long as you leave this part clear for the balloon. But I think that's it. I think overall it's pretty effective. It's supposed to be whimsical. It's supposed to look fun. And I think that it does. So I will say that it's done. Now, I encourage you guys to go over to the Discord channel, again, right there. There's also a link on my Twitch page. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can also join. I keep my notifications for this channel on, so if you post any time of day, or you know, it could be 2 weeks from now, you post a picture, I'll go out there and look at it and give you feedback. I also encourage you to share other art. Like, you don't have to share just what we work on. So I have a couple of digital artists that have shared their work on there, and that's really fantastic. I love to see digital art. So just share whatever you have. Share any of your artwork. I encourage you. I'm going to go over to Discord right now and just see if anybody has added anything. It doesn't look like there have been any ads. No, I got a happy Valentine's Day though from Nemio Axic. Thank you. All right, so there's nobody in Discord yet. Nobody's uploaded their photos. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, because I can always go back and give you guys feedback in Discord later. Again, I encourage you to share any artwork, not just the artwork we worked on today. I am doing another stream drawing on Tuesday. And that will be, let me just look and see what our theme is going to be. So I have my schedule on my Twitch channel. You can actually click on schedule and it will take you to my class calendar. So you can see exactly what we're going to be doing. And I've got all the way through the end of February. I haven't put March up yet, but I'll start putting March up soon. So it looks like we're going to be doing a little penguin family. We're going to be drawing a penguin family on Tuesday. So please join me in drawing next week. I had a good time today, despite all of the red trying to mix with everything else in the picture. Red, apparently Valentine's Day is trying to take over everything, including my painting. So hopefully it did not do that with yours. But thank you for joining me, and have a happy Valentine's Day.